Colton thought we were doing Flash Gordon and he plugged the toilet. Head for higher ground.
Flash Gordon's a film from 1980, and it came out in the wake of the popularity of the Star Wars films and a couple other, the Star Trek franchise had rebooted. And this actually has an interesting history because George Lucas loved the Flash Gordon serials. That was when you used to go to the movies as a kid, you'd see an episode of Flash Gordon before the movie. And then that would bring you back the next week because it would end with a cliffhanger and you'd go back the next week to see another episode. And that's what inspired George Lucas. And he actually, as a filmmaker, wanted to remake Flash Gordon. That's what he wanted to do. But he did not own the rights to it and he couldn't get the rights to it. So that's how Star Wars was made. He wrote his own Flash Gordon, which became Star Wars. And then that became popular and successful, and as a result, the people who owned the rights to Flash Gordon decided, oh, we'll make Flash Gordon. And so this film came out. And it was, if nothing else, very different than all the other science fiction films that were hitting the market at that point. And that would have included, obviously, the Star Wars films, the Star Trek franchise had started, Battlestar Galactica, the original, in 1978, and Buck Rogers, which had also been rebooted in 1979, was a theatrical release and then became a series. And this one was very different. So we gave it a try, and I'm going to let you give me some feedback before I say anything.
I think it was okay. I think some of it was a little bit confusing. How Flash Gordon got in the airplane with the girl and then got out at the hot hill, and then the scientist, I don't know why the scientist wanted Flash Gordon to get out, or I don't know why he would do that.
So you had trouble following the story,
yeah,
is what you're saying. It was a bit of a confusing setup. Did you notice a little piece of trivia? They start the movie and all these natural disasters that are happening to the Earth, they're not natural. It's because Ming, and he becomes Ming the Merciless, but Ming on the planet Mongo is playing with the weather of the Earth. It's like a toy to him. And he's got this little board that has like volcano or tidal wave, and he's pressing that, and he's actually creating those disturbances, and the hot hail is one of them that you just referred to. Another one was called earthquake. So would a guy on a planet far away who had never heard of Earth before, because actually the guy says, oh, I have a new toy for you, it's called Earth. He's got a button that says earthquake. Why would that say earthquake? Why wouldn't that say groundquake? Because the Earth, they didn't even know what it was. But anyway, so he's causing all that. And then what happens is Flash and Dale don't really know each other. They're in this airplane, and the hailstorm brings them down, and they wind up crashing near Dr. Zarkov's lab, and he's the one that knows about Ming. He said he's been telling everybody that the Earth is being attacked by another planet. Nobody believes him. They think he's crazy. And so they crash land near his lab, and he needs somebody else to go on the rocket ship with him to work the controls. And he only needs one other person. So Dale is lighter, so he says, we'll use you, and he tells Flash to get out. And so Flash starts to get out, and then he attacks Zarkov to try to save Dale, and they wind up blasting off and going up into space. What did you think once they got to the planet Mongo?
At that point, it was like all confusing. I couldn't really follow it.
Okay. Did you like anything about the film?
I think the one part I liked was when Flash thought that it was going to be like football with the green eggs in his hand, and he was trying to fight the bad guys. And
right, because in this version of the story, Flash is the quarterback for the New York Jets, and he's been on vacation, and he's going back, and that's why he's on the airplane. And when they're captured by Ming and Ming's forces, he's in the throne room, and he's awaiting Ming's judgment of him, and he tries to escape. And some of the other, there's all these kingdoms of Mongo that are there paying tribute to Ming, and one of them has these eggs. It's like it's a ceramic globe, and like you said, he pretends it's a football, and he's almost going to win his freedom by defeating all the guards and everything else. When I was a kid, I liked that too. When I was a kid, I really liked that too. I thought that was great. As an adult watching it, it's cringeworthy. My favorite part of the film would have to be the soundtrack. The soundtrack is Queen. I love Queen. I've always been a Queen fan. I've had the
Of course.
I've had the privilege of being able to see them in concert, and they're great. And the soundtrack is unique because all the other soundtracks for all the other films that I referred to at the beginning, at the opening here, were all classical music, basically following the pattern John Williams had set up with Star Wars. So this took a different approach, and they used kind of a rock soundtrack, and that works really well. I thought that was pretty good. Thought the costuming in this was phenomenal. I mean, the costumes are gorgeous, and the colors are very vibrant. And,
I like the gold one.
Yeah.
And I like the sound that it makes when they move in the gold one.
Right. Now, interestingly, what did you think of Dale and Flash as actors?
I thought they were good.
Okay.
Dale, I guess she didn't have. For me, she wasn't in it a lot, so I can't really tell with her. Flash, I think he's good.
Okay.
Okay.
For me, they were the weak part. They were the liability. Your two leads were the weakest actors in there. The supporting cast, though, is pretty incredible. You have Topol playing Zarkov. Max von Sydow is playing Ming the Merciless, and he looks just like the comic strip. And he later would be in Star Wars. Timothy Dalton is the Prince of Arborea. And he looks great, and he'd later become James Bond. There were a lot of James Bond connections in this film, actually. Ornella Muti, who is an Italian actress, is phenomenal as Ming's daughter. So the supporting cast, and the guy who played Clytus, I can't think of his name, but he was quite good, too. The supporting cast is very good. Oh, and Brian Blessed, who was also in Star Wars, plays Voltan. He's the Hawkman with the beard. I guess he wanted that part because he was always a fan of the Flash Gordon comic strips as a kid, and that was his favorite character. He always wanted to play that part. So visually, it's very interesting. It looks a lot like the Sunday cartoon strips that were in the Sunday paper in color, and they purposely did that. That was kind of the design motif they were going with, is to make it look like that. And the costumes work well. The plot in following Flash is difficult now. This is a movie that has not aged well. I remember going to see it in the theater as a kid and really liking it because it was different and it was a different twist on the science fiction films I'd seen, but watching it, I had a hard time sitting through it. And you didn't really seem to want to sit through it. You didn't make it to the end, did you?
No.
No, and neither did Colton. Colton said, "Oh, I love it," and then he was coloring and doing other things. He wasn't really into it. Was there anything that struck you what was the biggest problem for you in liking it? Why didn't you like it? Other than it was confusing. You said it was confusing. Was there anything else?
Yeah, it was very confusing. When they made it look like the comics that you said, I thought like part of them were weird with the costumes in a way.
Okay.
As the comics. I just think it's very confusing, too.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Certainly the lizard people, their costumes do not look good in the digital age. When this has been digitally remastered and you can see all the flaws in the things, and it's obviously a costume, you can see the material moving and everything else. It's campy. If you can look at it in that kind of a way, you might be able to enjoy it. If it's a film that you loved and you're nostalgic for it, you might like it. I don't know that I could recommend it as much. The Queen soundtrack's really good. There's some great supporting performances in it, but for me it hasn't aged too well. All right, yummy or crummy for you?
I think I'm going to give it a crummy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give it a crummy too, although years ago I wouldn't have done that, but now, it's a flash in the pan.
You had to make that joke.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's there.